When you see your son on the cover of Madden 25, how does that make you feel?
It's incredible because I know it was a dream of his. This is a story. I don't know if it's funny.
Yeah, tell me a story.
Max and Christian were kind of young, but they were kind of old enough to watch each other. So I give them the big lecture. No fighting. Just watch a movie, play video games. We get a call. Well, don't worry, but there's a lot of blood. I'm like, what?
No.
And I've got broken controllers and a hole in the wall to prove it.
Yo, I'm Robert Griffin III, and this is RG3 and The Ones, of Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by PrizePicks. On this show, we're going to be talking to some of the most interesting people in the world. So if you have not hit that like or subscribe button, I don't know what you are waiting for. I'm just the one on this show who predicted Christian McCaffrey is going to be on the cover of Madden. I will take that victory to the bank. But make sure you guys follow us on social media at RG3 and The Ones. Know that we're going to be dropping new episodes every single week. And also you can get us wherever you get your podcasts, all right? So coming up on this episode, I'm talking to one of the best blocking wide receivers of all time. Now you might say blocking, what does that really have to do with it? Well, guess what? He's also a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was an All-American at Stanford in 1990, the year that I was born. He's also got 4 sons. I'm talking about Max, Luke, Dylan, and Christian. The one and the only legendary wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, Ed McCaffrey. Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thank you. You are hired, by the way. Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for reminding me of how old I am. But it's pleasure to be on your show.
No, man, it's the pleasure is mine, and we're always going to be honest on this show, Ed. So is it okay if I tell you a story real fast?
Please do.
Okay, so I got to be honest, I'm fanning out right now. And I told you that, you brightened my day by coming on the show because you're one of my favorite players ever on one of my favorite teams. So not a lot of people know, but I was a Bronco fan growing up. So in 1997, this was the year you guys went to the Super Bowl in 98. I'm in first grade. The teacher, tells everybody, hey, you're going to go up to the board. You're going to pick who's going to win the Super Bowl, right? It's between the Packers and the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm in Texas, so I know a lot of people believe Texas people are Cowboys fans, but there are a lot of Packers fans as well. So I walk my black behind up to the board, and I pick the Denver Broncos to win the Super Bowl. And everyone's telling me, oh, my God, why would you do that? They're not going to win. They don't have a chance to win the Super Bowl. They're going against Brett Favre. I'm like, no, I'm going with the Denver Broncos. And you guys pulled out the victory, made me the hero of the school because I was the only person in the entire school to pick the Denver Broncos to win that Super Bowl in 98. So I want to say thank you for that. And from that moment, you guys made me fall in love with football. I credit that team with helping me get to wherever I got in life because it made me fall in love with the game. And I was a Bronco fan for the rest of the time. So I want to say thank you for that. And you were also the leading receiver in that Super Bowl. Don't think I didn't know that.
Well, thank you. I tell you what, man, it's making me feel old. But thank you for believing in us because not many people did. We were 14-point underdogs. The Packers had won the Super Bowl the year before, and everyone thought that was going to be a blowout. I do know you spent some time in Colorado, so maybe that's where you picked up your fandom for the Denver Broncos. I got to ask you, though, whose jersey were you wearing?
That game, unfortunately, Ed, I was not wearing your jersey. I was wearing this one right here, John Elway. Okay, on the back. Let's go.
You picked a good one. So you saw the whole helicopter and the whole deal.
I saw all of it.
Play, by the way, you should have thrown it to. I'm kidding. I was not open at all. It was a great play by John.
No, man, it was phenomenal, and it's always been a dream to get a chance to be around you, be able to talk to you. So you're making my dreams come true today. I just want you to know that. But in other news right now, one of your sons, congratulations is in order, right? Christian McCaffrey is now the official cover athlete of Madden 25.
Yeah. That just for today, huh? Dropped today. What great timing.
Yes. Great timing, right? I mean, who would have thought? Look at God. But for you, when you see your son on the cover of Madden 25, how does that make you feel?
It's incredible because I know it was a dream of his. It sounds crazy, right? It's a video game. It's not what's happening on the field. But, right. John Madden was a legend, and his video game is legendary. Like every kid who has anything to do with football plays that game. And him and his brothers and all their friends, they played for hours and hours and hours in our basement. And I've got broken controllers and a hole in the wall to prove it. But it's just like collecting football cards when I was a kid was kind of, something every kid did, and you dreamed of maybe one day playing in the NFL or playing in the Super Bowl. I think for today's kids that are in their 20s and 30s, being on a Madden cover, that's something that you aspire to. It's like a really incredible honor. And I know that it's something that he thought about. You try not to think about that stuff, right? It's about what happens on the field. But that is a huge honor, and he's very appreciative. And I think they did a phenomenal job with the covers, too. I don't know if you have seen them, but they're like the most realistic looking covers I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, they look phenomenal. And as you know, or maybe someone has explained to you through this whole process, that when you get that Madden cover, it's unbelievable. It's an honor. But then there's the side of the world that thinks there's a curse that comes with that Madden cover. Do you believe in the Madden curse, or does Christian believe in the Madden curse?
The Patrick Mahomes curse. I hope it's that curse, man, because he's been cursed in the right way, man. Just winning Super Bowls,
yes.
And that's that's the ultimate goal for every player, ultimate team goal, and every player wants to play in a Super Bowl championship team. And there's some players that have done that cover that have won some Super Bowls, including Patrick Mahomes last year. I still have him in my head, driving down in overtime. And so let's hope that's the curse. Let's hope Christian can do that with the 49ers this season.
I like it. And as you, I don't know if you know this, but he's the first running back to be on the cover since Barry Sanders in 2014. And then also the first active running back since Peyton Hillis in 2012, and the first 49ers player to ever don the cover. So I'm with you. Let's make sure it's the Patrick Mahomes curse. Yeah. And they certainly got the team and the coach and Kyle Shanahan to make that happen. For you, Ed, when did you realize, as you were raising Christian in particular, that he was going to have the ability to be an NFL caliber player?
Well, you're someone who can probably relate because you are a unique talent, right? You probably recognize when you were like 7 or 8, you were quicker and faster than everybody, right? And I know you know that, and players don't talk about it, but like when he was 7 or 8, you could already tell. Now, we're in a small town in Colorado, so I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world, and you never know how a kid's going to develop, how big and strong, how tall are you going to be, how big and strong and fast. But there's certain things you can tell at an early age, like relative to who you're going against. How athletic are you? What kind of coordination and balance, vision? There are things you can notice, believe it or not, even when kids are early. And I know you know that because you were the same way. So he could kind of tell he belonged. And then he played a lot of youth league football and was in those Army All-American games in high school and in 7th and 8th grade. And that's where he played with a lot of other running backs and players who ended up being NFL players. And he was, competing pretty favorably against those guys, but you still never know till you go through puberty and you finish maxing out like in your early 20s or mid 20s. You don't know for sure how much you're going to develop physically, but you could certainly tell early on, he had a gift.
Yeah, and you talk about being able to see him go against other guys, but there's a lot of images and videos of Christian just running around while you were with the Broncos with the team. Was there a guy that you were a teammate of, whether it be with the Giants, the 49ers, or the Broncos, that maybe you envisioned him modeling his game after?
No, I don't think he really tried to model his game after anyone. I mean, there was Barry Sanders early and there was Marshall Faulk. And I think because those guys, obviously were super quick and fast, and that's kind of his game. And then Marshall Faulk could catch out of the backfield as well. And so those types of backs were probably the types that he gravitated towards because he had a similar skill set. But, every player's different. You have your guys you kind of feel like are your favorites or guys that you can relate to, but everyone's an individual. Everyone's different. Nobody is exactly the same. But I would say those guys were 2 of the backs that he kind of looked at and thought, I think I can maybe be like that.
Nah, and you say that, and it's a perfect transition because Christian just signed a new contract as well. And a lot of the reports were like, hey, Christian McCaffrey resets the running back market. And I don't necessarily see it that way, Ed, because I believe that Christian is a unique back, right? He's a back that can play all 3 downs. He can catch out of the backfield, run between the tackles. He can hit the home run. Those guys are very rare. Do you take a certain sense of pride or proudness in the fact that your son is such a dynamic player and has created a mold for himself?
Yeah, I mean, as a father, I'm just happy he's doing what he loves for a living. I mean, it's a game. We both got to play it. And you can play it for so long. And even as a grown man, you get to play a kid's game and get paid to do it. So as a father, I'm just happy he's doing what he loves to do. And so, in terms of the contract, he's very appreciative of the 49ers organization because we've seen organizations that don't pay their top players. You see players hold out. You see players get into, vitriolic negotiations. And we love the 49ers. I played for the team. Like half my coaches and teammates are in that organization. Like family to me, and Lisa and Christian loves his teammates. He absolutely loves playing for them. So we certainly are glad that they did something that they didn't have to do, but something that benefits them as an organization and also benefits Christian given the circumstances. But you and I know, you're smart, you know the drill. Unfortunately, running backs in general are penalized because of the structure of the NFL, rookie wage scale, rookie term limits, and especially the franchise tag. And so there's lots of ways to maybe improve upon that in the future. But really, Christian is not treated like an offensive weapon based on the system. He's treated like just a running back. So for him, you look at, the last 5 years of offensive players of the year, all the non-quarterbacks, because let's face it, quarterbacks deserve to be the highest paid guy on every team. They're the most important players, most difficult position. But of the non-quarterbacks, I'll use Justin Jefferson because he's one of my favorite players to watch, and he deserves everything he got paid. But, he signed a $140 million deal, and missed 7 games last year. So whatever argument you're trying to bring up, it doesn't fit if you're trying to use that argument for running back salaries for Christian. It just doesn't make sense. And so running backs in the future who can run routes like receivers, who can line up in the slot outside the numbers, run between and outside the tackles. For the running backs that do have that skill set, not just Christian, but in the future, running backs that come out of college that have that skill set, unfortunately, they will get lumped into a category which is penalized under the current system. So I think Christian understood, like, he had to be indifferent about the negotiation because those are the rules that you're playing by. I think his agent did a great job. I'm very appreciative of the 49ers getting a deal done. It's a big honor to be the highest paid player at your position 2 times in a row. But you can go back to 2019 and look at receiver contracts that are more than what he's making now as the offensive player of the year. So people keep trying to make the argument that it's a fair system, but it's not. It's not a free market economy. There are several controls and interventions in place to prevent a player like Christian from getting paid fair market value. So, what does he deserve? Probably up around where the other offensive player of the years are getting paid. But what is realistic? I think they both walked away happy because Christian loves the 49ers. He knows they didn't have to do a deal, and he understands the game they're playing and the rules they're playing by.
Ooh, Ed, you are cooking right now because I have been all about running backs getting paid more and really just getting paid to the value that they bring to the team. And you didn't specifically say this, but would it be the right thing to say to summarize it up as Christian McCaffrey is just as valuable to the San Francisco 49ers as Justin Jefferson is to the Minnesota Vikings? Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I think it's hard, without putting any names in place. If you're the offensive player of the year, you're pretty valuable to your team. And I'll say this regarding a running back. Like, I get that the game has evolved. It's more of a passing game, which is why running backs that have a skill set that lend themselves to the passing game are more valuable and will continue to be more valuable. One, they're staying in on every down. And two, they create huge mismatch problems for defenses. They have to decide what personnel they're going to go with. They have to decide how they're going to cover them out of the backfield. What if you split your receiver out outside the numbers? You walk in your linebacker to cover him one-on-one. So 90% of the time, Christian's bracketed out of the backfield, which means you're using 2 players to cover him. If you're using 2 players to cover him, what happened to the other safety? He came down to help bracket him. So you got 2 players on 1, which means it opens things up for everybody else. And those are metrics that real football, that real football people that watch the film closely and watch how a team's trying to defend an offense, they understand that. But a lot of people don't. That's not a metric. Hey, how many times did you get bracketed in a game to open up other players? It's not a metric. But if you do look at like overall offensive production, I think it starts to show up there. Right. So how many total yards did your team have? How many total touchdowns? Were you able to spread the ball out? And that's true for Christian too. Like when you have offensive playmakers at receiver or tight end, that makes his job easier, both in the run game and in the passing game. But as a running back, if you can add that value to cause teams to have to bracket you, use 2 players up just to defend you in the passing game, and you can create alignment and assignment, conflicts for the defense, that's a very, very, very valuable thing for a team to have. Not unlike a receiver like a Justin Jefferson, who might get a little extra attention, right? Might have a safety shading over to his side, or the defense doing some bracketing him or doing something to take him out of the game. That's why it helps to have like an Addison on the other side, take some pressure off of him. But it's no different whether you're a running back or you're a receiver. If you have that ability to dictate to the defense some ways that they're going to have to defend your offense, that is a valuable thing. And in my opinion, they should be compensated equally.
No doubt about it. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Ed. And actually, I can see where Christian gets his football mind from, because when you're talking about that, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is there's a lot of box score stat watchers out there who won't see that bracketed coverage. They don't understand how hard it is for a defense when you have a running back like Christian who can line up in the backfield in the eye, he can line up in the gun, he can line up in the slot, he can line up out wide, and he creates those easy mismatches for you. And then on top of that, yeah, the 49ers have the Avengers on offense with Debo and George Kittle and Ayuk, and now you got Pearsall coming out there. So I fully understand exactly where you're coming from, and I agree. Running backs should be compensated fairly to their value to that team. Maybe it's not just a blanket statement of all running backs, but for special guys like Christian, I think for sure that should be the case. And speaking about Christian, I think you've done a phenomenal job raising all your children and have been a great dad to them and really just help guide them through their careers. But what's one of the funnier childhood memories you have of Christian growing up?
Oh, man, funny childhood memory? I don't know. I mean, I remember the first time he wanted to play football, his older brother Max started playing at 9, and at 7, we could barely keep him off the field. He kept trying to run onto the field to play. So I remember he fell in love with the game pretty early. Man, I don't know if there's a funny. Oh, I'll tell you. I guess this is a story. I don't know if it's funny.
Yeah, tell me a story.
So the late great Pat Bowlen, former owner of the Denver Broncos. This was after I retired, and the Bolins invited us to watch the game in their suite at the stadium. Okay. So we went, and Max and Christian were kind of young. We couldn't get a babysitter. We don't want to say no to the Bolins. It's really cool they invited us, but they were kind of old enough to watch each other. So I give them the big lecture. Hey, no fighting. Just watch a movie, play video games, play Madden. The whole time we're gone. Just don't do anything. Here's our phone. Call us if you need anything, but just don't, roughhouse. Don't do anything physical. Don't go outside. So we get a call like close to halftime, and it's like from Matt. He's like, hey, you might need to come home. I'm like, why? Well, we were kind of roughhousing and there's a lot of blood. I'm like, what? Oh. What are you talking about? And so I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I called my neighbor who's right down the street. He came over the house, and I'm thinking he's just going to say, no big deal. Don't worry about it. And he's like, well, don't worry, but there's a lot of blood. I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
They threw on the boxing gloves, and one of them caught their eye, which bleeds a lot, like on the table. And sure enough, it's just a gusher. And so we apologize to the Bolins, and we leave at halftime, and we come back, and everything was good to go. But people were looking at us like we were crazy because we had to rush home to see our kids. But they've always been super physical. They always get along great with each other, but they're brothers, right? And then, and so like a lot of times people ask, why did you let them play football? It's a physical, rough sport. And I'm like, you don't understand my kids. If it wasn't football, they'd be doing all kinds of crazy stuff, boxing or MMA or who knows what they'd be doing. So at least I know where they are at practice and in games, and they're doing something they love and directing like all that energy. But that gave us a little bit of a scare.
No, I mean, I'm glad everything ended up being okay, but it's clear that Christian wanted all the smoke, right? Whether it was going to be football or something else, they were in for blood. So, that's an amazing story. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard that anywhere else. So thank you for sharing that. RG3 and The Ones is presented by PrizePicks, and testing my skills on PrizePicks this playoff basketball season and also this past football season is the most simple way to get in on the action. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app out there, people. I made my first $10 deposit and received an instant $10 bonus. If you have the skills, and I know you got the skills, you can play for a shot at turning your $10 into $1,000. Playoff time is your time to join the PrizePicks community of over 5 million members who have already downloaded the app And guys, get this. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Kickoff might be a long way out, but you can already pick more or less on 2024 season stats on PrizePicks. I'm talking season totals, passing yards, receiving touchdowns, sacks, you name it, we got it. So let's get into some early football picks this week. This week on PrizePicks, I selected Alvin Kamara to have more than 4.5 rushing touchdowns. Now, why is that? I believe that Kamara is going to have a resurgence with the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr is going to be getting him the rock in the red zone frequently, and he's going to have a couple long runs this year. He wants to show the league that, hey, you can't forget about me. So look for him to have more than 4.5 rushing touchdowns this year. And then I'm also going to go and select Anthony Richardson. I mean, the guy that people are calling the next Cam Newton, but I think he'll be the first Anthony Richardson. I believe he'll have more than 17.5 passing touchdowns. I could see him being a 17 or should I say 18 passing touchdown guy with about 10 rushing touchdowns because he's that dynamic of an offensive weapon. Him getting a full season under his belt, I think he could take the league by storm. So look for him to have more than 17.5 passing touchdowns, but I don't think that's how we're going to judge him this year. It's going to be based off wins and how many times he gets into the end zone, period. So those are my picks. Daily fantasy sports is made easy with PrizePicks. Make sure you download the app today and use code RG3 for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, people, download the app today and use code RG3 for a first deposit match of up to $100. Let's get this money, y'all. You know, I don't want to spend the entire time talking about your sons because I am such a big fan of you and you had an amazing career as well. So there is no Christian McCaffrey or Luke McCaffrey or Max or Dylan if it wasn't for Easy Eddie or Eddie Mack, the Bruise, White Lightning, all these nicknames that you have. I'm just fascinated by them because I grew up watching you play. So what is your actual favorite nickname of the group?
Oh man, it doesn't even matter. It kind of depends on when I knew you. So like if it was when I was little, it was just Eddie, and then sometime it turned into Easy Ed. I think when Easy Ed Pinckney was playing for Villanova back in the day. Turned into Easy Ed, then Eddie Mack, and so it. You know, I don't even think twice. Not too many people actually call me the Bruise, except for Phil Simms when he was calling games back in the day. And I did have a cool poster one time with a nickname on it, but you know what? It doesn't matter to me. Ed, Eddie Mack, whatever, doesn't matter to me. I'll still answer.
Okay, so the Bruise in particular, you said no one really called you that except for Phil Simms, but do you remember how you got each of those nicknames? Because I think I have an inkling of where you got the Bruise from, but if you would explain it, I think it would be better.
Well, you know, my name's Ed or Edward. My father was an Edward, so I go to Eddie. So immediately it was Eddie because I was the younger person named Ed in the family. And then Easy Ed, I think, happened. In high school, I didn't talk much, man. I'd be hanging out at every party and every event, playing sports all year, but I'd just be the one sitting there, just hanging out, having a good time. I didn't say much. And then also, you know, Easy Ed Pinckney was a big time player for Villanova. I went to high school in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I think it was easy to call me Easy Ed. Then, you know, college was kind of the same. And then it was in the NFL, I think the Bruise came because I played with Phil Simms with the New York Giants. He was my quarterback. And it was a lot of fun playing with him. I think I was in 7th grade when he got in the league, so he was a lot older than I was. And eventually he called my games. But unfortunately, I got hit a lot going over the middle. So, you know, especially when I was in New York. And at one time in New York, you know, I'd never played special teams in my life. Some people can't believe that. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I was always a starter. I never played special teams. And all of a sudden, I'm busting up wedges on, like, the kickoff team. I'm like, this isn't my thing. And I hurt my neck and was wearing a neck roll for like half the season. So all the receivers and DBs were like, man, you got a bad look going there, man. You got to lose the neck roll. And I'm like, my trainer, Ronnie Barnes, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, trainer with the New York Giants, he's like, we won't cover you if you don't wear the neck roll. So I had to wear this neck roll for a whole season. And so I think just all the hits I took over the middle, Phil Simms just started calling me the Bruise. And then, I don't know, White Lightning, that's pretty obvious. I'm fat, right? That's why White Lightning. For some reason, man, this still chaps my hide. Somebody wrote down somewhere that I was slow. And I'll admit, like in the beginning of my career, I wanted to catch the ball first. So I'm like, I just thought if I dropped the ball, I'd be cut. Back then, the leading wide receivers for the New York Giants, Mark Ingram and Steven Touchdown Maker Baker, had 26 catches on the season. I bet you didn't even know that.
No, I did not. Oof.
The year they beat the Bills in the Super Bowl, 1990. They had 26 catches during the whole regular season. That wasn't targets. That wasn't one game. Anyway, my point is, on that Bill Parcells coach team with Bill Belichick as a D coordinator and Tom Coughlin coaching receivers, on that team, you better not drop a pass or you might not get back in a game, right? So I was so nervous about dropping passes. I didn't do a great job of running after the catch. Wasn't until maybe like my 5th or 6th year where I started feeling comfortable. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get cut if I drop a pass, right? So I started opening up a little. But I did run. I didn't have your speed, but I did run a 4.38 for the Chargers before the draft. And so I could move a little bit. And no one believes it because somehow online, how do you get it changed online, man? Give me some tips. They got me down like it was a 4.7. I'm like, watch the film. That ain't a 4.7. I'm 55 years old. It still bugs me that it's out there somewhere in the universe. But anyway, that poster was pretty cool. I appreciated that poster. Someone actually thought that I had some speed.
Ed, I thought you had speed for sure. That's why the White Lightning one, and it was obviously near the, I wouldn't say the end, but as I was growing up in 97, 98, that's when you really started to open up a little bit more with the Denver Broncos. So I saw it for sure. But speaking of nicknames, the bruise, you talked about it being hit over the middle, but what about that block you put on, who is it, Ryan Williams from the Packers in the Super Bowl? You gave him a couple bruises on that one for sure.
I'm going with that answer from now on. Why didn't I think of that? I'm called the bruise because I give other people bruises. I was thinking it was because of me, which it was. That's why Phil called me that. But I'm going with that from now on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're the reason that the guys on offense can't even block like that anymore because you laid them out.
There 2 flagrants on that play in today's game. But Rod Smith and I, Rod, Ring of Famer, hopefully Hall of Famer one day. I think he deserves it. We used to have like a go and bet how many guys we could knock down. Because when I first started with the Broncos, he just came off the practice squad, and I had just signed with the team, and they had a couple of receivers starting over, a couple of first-round guys that were good receivers. But we were just trying to make the team. So we're like, they never throw us the ball. They don't call any plays for us. So how can we get noticed, right? Because every player just wants the head coach to rewind that film and show. If you're a backup especially, right? Rewind the film in front of the team and show it to everybody. So we're like, let's just see how many decleaters we can get a game. So we'd have little $5 and $10 bets, and we'd be dropping people. So, that was one of the most fun years. I wasn't a starter, but just me and Rod competing. And we were competing for the same exact position on the team, but we were friends. And like, I wanted him to do well so badly, and he rooted for me. And, for me in sports, it's the memories, it's the friendships that you make along the way. And that was such a fun year for me, despite not being a starter playing, because I created this friendship with Rod, and we were battling together at the bottom of the depth chart, rooting for each other, but competing against each other too. And it was such a fun year. But I'm going with your answer from now on. Yeah, why they call me the bruise? Yeah, handing out bruises,
because you were handing out bruises. But you mentioned Rod Smith. Obviously, I told you I was a huge fan of the Broncos. So Rod Smith, Shannon Sharp, Tom Nalen, the center. I knew all these guys. But Rod is a guy that doesn't get the love he deserves. Why do you think that Rod should be in the Hall of Fame?
I think because of what he did on the field. I mean, he was such an important part of a team that won 2 Super Bowls. And I think sometimes you get a knock as an undrafted guy. Like if he was a first-round draft pick and put up his numbers and won a couple Super Bowls, went to those Pro Bowls, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. I just think that he started off as an undrafted guy and had to climb the ranks. But the numbers and the Super Bowls, in my opinion, put him in. And also big plays in the Super Bowl. Like who can forget that post-route touchdown against the Falcons in Super Bowl 33 to basically win. I mean, the game was over after that, right? Even though it wasn't, it was. And so, just because the type of player he was, the type of leader he was, a team captain on a back-to-back Super Bowl championship team who put up huge numbers, he belongs in there. I mean, I think, 2 things that hurt Rod are, 1, he was undrafted, so he didn't get a lot of hype in the beginning of his career. And 2, we had so many daggone good players, right? I mean, look how many Hall of Famers we have already. I'm probably going to leave someone out, but obviously it starts with John Elway. You got Shannon Sharp. You got Gary Zimmerman. You got Steve Atwater. It's Tom Nail's not in yet. We're probably missing some guys. But like when you start getting that many guys in the Hall of Fame, you know how it is. The league starts looking and thinking, well, we got enough from that team. Maybe we'll,
right.
And there's been players on other teams that have had the same thing happen to them.
That's true.
The 4 or 5 guys make the Hall, and then they get left out.
Yeah, one guy you're talking about that was left out is Terrell Davis.
Terrell Davis,
right?
that's right. I know
Terrell
it's somebody. Just saw TD the other day, right? I mean, there's so many. You forget some of the guys on the list. That's how many there were. So,
and you've had a lot of experience, playing with Hall of Famers too. So one of those guys is, goes by a nickname, and you know him. You not only played against him, but you won a Super Bowl with him in San Francisco. Is primetime Deion Sanders. So when you look at it from that perspective, Deion is a guy that goes viral a lot, right? One thing he likes to do is rank his sons. He ranks them 1 through 4. Who he thinks is the favorite. Do you do those kind of things? Do you rank the sons?
My wife Lisa does that every day, based on who calls her back, who she's talked to lately, who's done something nice for her. She ranks them every single day. Yeah. So when I saw Deion did that, I just saw that last couple of years that he does that. Like Lisa's been doing that for years. No,
that's awesome.
I love them all. Of course, there's ones that for whatever reason we're spending more time with or talking with more.
Right.
What's going on in their life. But it's funny because Lisa does the same thing. Yeah, and Deion was a great teammate in San Fran, by the way. He was a phenomenal teammate. I got to battle against him every day.
If you could peer into your wife's mind right now, who would you say is her rankings right now of the Suns?
Today?
Yes, today.
It depends on who she talked to last. I think she did talk to Christian when they announced the Madden cover. And they were talking about it.
So he's won right now. Okay.
Yeah, some people would think that he's not always won, but he might be one today because he's the last person I know he spoke with. And they were talking about, Christian's got an upcoming wedding coming up. That's another big thing happening in a couple of weeks. And they were talking about that, and they talked for a long time. So I'd say Christian, and then Luke might be number 2 right now because they've been talking a lot. Because Luke is our youngest, and just got drafted by your old team, the Washington Commanders. But he's a rookie, so he's moving in a new apartment, has no furniture, going through OTAs, doing that whole thing. So a lot of times you gravitate towards your child that needs you the most.
That's true.
So that's typically what we do as well. So Luke's getting a lot of attention. Max is crushing it in Miami. Dylan's crushing it in South Carolina. But I don't know if she talked to them today. So if I rank them 4, I'll go right now. Christian, Luke. Oh, man, I'll go Dylan and Max. I don't know if Max.
There we go.
I don't think Max called her back this morning. He usually does. Well, you know what? They got him working. That's why. He usually calls.
That's right. He's working in Miami.
It changed throughout the day. The day's not over yet. So this is
okay.
Max usually calls late at night when he's driving home after he's drawn up all the passports. That's what he calls.
That's awesome. I appreciate you giving that ranking, and hopefully Lisa will see this and won't get too mad at us for go ahead and putting that out there, what the rankings of the Suns are right now. But one thing I did want to get your ranking on was you're a part of an illustrious group that is father-son NFL duos. Who would you say are your top 3 NFL duos, father-son duos right now in NFL history?
In NFL history, man, it would really, it's tough to beat the Manning family. I got to meet Archie, and I was at this golf course pool, and he stopped in the parking lot and started talking to me. And I kid you not, it might have been a half hour later. He was still talking, and Peyton said, "Hey, Pops, we got to roll." And he was like the nicest guy in the world. I know where they get it. So Archie's awesome. And then obviously you have, Peyton and Eli. They've both won multiple Super Bowls. And don't forget Cooper now. Cooper's a funny dude, too.
Yes, he is.
I include him in there. But in terms of the NFL, I don't think you can beat the Manning family. And then there's another couple of guys I played with. So I played with Mark Ingram. He was one of the receivers on the Giants when I played there. And his son obviously went on to have a phenomenal career. And then I learned this in a trivia question. Another teammate of mine with the New York Giants was Steve Diassi, played linebacker and was a long snapper. And his son, Zach Diassi, this is a trivia question. They're the only father-son combination that won a Super Bowl with the same team.
Wow.
So I was hoping that we were going to get added to that list this year.
That's true.
But damn that Patrick Mahomes.
Listen, you got a chance. You still got a chance this year, right?
I want that Patrick Mahomes curse. That's what I want.
There you go. So there you go. So the Mannings, then you talk about the Ingrams, and then you said Diassi?
Yeah, Steve Diassi, Zach Diassi.
Steve Diassi. That's awesome.
And then I know there's so many other brothers that play or fathers and sons that play. And I think those numbers are going to increase because a lot more NFL players have their kids play football growing up. And obviously a pretty popular sport. It took a little bit of a dive there, I think, for a while in terms of signups when all the concussion stuff was going on. But it seems like enrollments have increased based on all the youth coaches that I've talked to that send kids to my camp. And football is more popular than ever, especially in the NFL.
No doubt about it. So you mentioned Luke getting drafted by the Commanders. Just for you, what are you most excited about for him coming into the NFL?
He's a pretty happy, enthusiastic, optimistic kid. He paid his dues. In high school, he was a quarterback. He had to compete with other good quarterbacks. Almost all the quarterbacks out of his high school went to play college ball, at the very least. And so he was always chomping at the bit. He went to a high school with a very good football program, so they were winning state championships every year. So he had to chomp at the bit, freshman, JV, then varsity. And finally, his senior year, he got to start at quarterback because that's the position he had played all through Little League. And we actually ran a lot of your stuff. I don't know if you remember the old bear and grizz. And
yes, I do. Yeah.
Run and the drift route and the scout route. So he was a mobile quarterback. He was an athletic quarterback, kind of, so we took some of the stuff he used to do and I figured, well, maybe it'll work for him. And so the inside zone, outside zone in the run game, and then the bear and grizz where you have an option to run and some of the RPOs. And then that play action drift route and scout route concept. We stole some of those concepts from your Washington playbook. Nice. And now a lot of teams run those things, but it was pretty innovative at the time. But you see a lot of it with Lamar in Baltimore. So I figured, he's a dual threat, so we'll run some of that stuff. And we went 15-0, won a state championship. He was a quarterback. Went to Nebraska, and it was, there's good talent in college. So he's battling back and forth, starter, not starter, starter, not starter. He transfers to Rice, where it was such a good move for him because he just loved Nebraska too. Some of his best friends were from Nebraska, but he really hit it off with a lot of his teammates. But the same thing happened. It's like on again, off again starter. And finally he went to his coach and said, I just want to get on the field. And I know his coach Bloomgren, who coached Christian at Stanford, he coached running backs there in O-line, mostly O-line, but he was the coach at Rice. And at first I was a little upset as a dad. I'm like, did they make you switch to receiver? And he's like, no, Dad, I wanted to switch. Like I told him, I just want to get on the field. I'll play DB, I'll play receiver, wherever you want to put me. And so as a father, when he's happy about it, I'm happy about it. Like if the coach had come to him and demoted him or switched his position against his will, it would have been upsetting to me because, I want him to be happy and do what he wants to do. But when I found out it was him that made that decision and went to the coach about it. And the coach said, hey, look, it's your decision. I'm not forcing you to do this. It made me happy as a father. So then I'm like, okay, we're good. This is what he wants to do, right? So I support whatever he wants to do. But he got moved to receiver mid-season 2 years ago. So that's not an easy thing to do. And he just basically got away with athletic ability for about half a season. And then his coaches worked with him, and we worked together when he came home in the summer and watched a lot of film and went over a lot of technique. But he only has one full year as a starter at Rice, so I don't think he's come close to hitting his ceiling. But he's very athletic, and he's got good coaches in Washington. I think he'll fit in real well with that offense. And he's gotten so much better from one year to the next at route running, but he's still got a lot to learn. Terry McLaurin has kind of taken him under his wing and taught him.
A great guy, yeah.
And that makes me so dang happy when you have a veteran player who's an elite player, kind of mentoring a younger player. To me, that means the world to the younger player, but I also think it's the best thing for your team. So I can't be there at practice every day, right? Just like in college.
It's true.
Couldn't be there at practice working with him. So I'm really glad he's got great coaches, and he's also got a great veteran player as an elite player helping him out.
No, that's really what it's about. And Scary Terry's he's just a pro's pro, overshadowed in college by the guys that he was with there at Ohio State. And now he's made a name for himself, one of the most consistent receivers in the NFL. So I think that's a huge guy to have on your side if you're Luke. But in your conversations with him about Jaden Daniels, just what's your biggest takeaway from what he's been going through with the Heisman Trophy winner guy that's going to take the city by storm?
Yeah, he thinks he's the real deal. He's legit. Obviously has arm strength, very accurate, and he can move around a little bit. So he said so far so good. And all the, I follow the team. So all the feedback I'm getting out of training camp is that he's had a great summer. As a rookie, I mean, you took the world by storm your rookie year. But from everything that I've heard about him, he's legit. Great teammate. And, you have to be a great teammate too, right? You got to get along with your players, your quarterback,
100%.
you're a leader by default. You can't help it. And so Luke likes him as a person, as a teammate, and then his physical ability is as advertised.
No, it's he is special. He definitely had the Heisman Trophy type of year last year, and I'm excited for him being there in Washington. And what I think about Luke, your son, is he gives you the ability to control the middle of the field, right? As a quarterback, at least in my opinion, when you make that switch to wide out, you understand where you need to be, when you need to be there. You understand what the quarterback is actually going through in the pocket. It's not always routes on air. So I think that matchup between those two QBs is going to be a great one for them. Obviously, the McCaffrey family, I don't know if everyone knows this, but you're the oldest of 5 children, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Right? 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Your sister, Monica, played college basketball at Georgetown. One of your brothers, Billy, played college basketball at Duke and Vanderbilt. And then you have Michael and Megan. Your wife is also the daughter of an Olympic sprinter. So very, very athletic family. And I want to ask you, between you and your wife, who do the kids get their speed from?
I would say this. Even though I like to talk about my 4.37 and 4.38 that I ran, which is pretty fast for a 6'5", 220-pound player.
Yes, it is.
If you're looking at girl versus guy, Lisa's faster relative to being a girl than I am to being a guy. She was probably the fastest player on her Stanford soccer team, and that had some really good Olympic players on that team.
Right.
So, and especially her quickness that you see with Christian and Luke and Max, and they all kind of had it. They get some of that from her for sure. Okay. So they're a blend. Every kid is like a blend of both parents. But being that Lisa ran I want to say she ran like a 4.8 while she was pregnant with our son Dylan for the Valkyries. This is when she was pregnant. She was very early stage pregnant, but she tried out for the her and her friend Susie decided to try out for the women's football team, the Valkyries in Colorado. And they had a combine for the women, and she ran like a 4.8. And we found out a week later she was pregnant. So
oh my gosh.
That's flying for
that is flying
for her. So I want to so badly say me, but I just can't.
I got you. I understand. Even though you got the nickname White Lightning, when you run 4.8 as a pregnant woman, that's fine.
I'm gonna say that she's relatively a lot faster than me. Yeah.
Understood. All right. So Christian had an amazing year at Stanford in 2015. Do you think that he should have won the Heisman in 2015 over Derrick Henry?
I do. And that's taking nothing away from Derrick Henry, man. Derrick Henry is one of my favorite players in the league, and he crushed it at Alabama. Christian did shatter a 20-year-old record by Barry Sanders and had a phenomenal season. One interesting thing that year, and it's not a bad decision, but they took him out for like 13 one-yard touchdowns on the goal line. And so you always wonder, like, wow, I probably would have scored on all of them, but worst case scenario, 10 or 12 more touchdowns, and that might have made the difference. But that was probably a smart coaching move to make because you can pound it in from 1 yard with their other backs who are very talented as well. But not saying it was close. I'm biased, but I think he should have.
Okay, I like the answer. Obviously, as a Heisman Trophy winner, fully support Derrick Henry, but I wonder if there is a little bit of West Coast bias because not as many people see the games. The games are a little bit later, but the year that Christian had was something we've really never seen before. So,
and I'll say this, regardless of who won, you're right about the West Coast bias. I remember going to an event in Atlanta that they had before the Heisman, and there were some people there that had votes, and we were eating breakfast. One of the guys with votes, for some reason, was okay volunteering this to me. He's like, yeah, I saw the second half of that Notre Dame game. That was really the only game that I watched. I'm like, wait a minute. You have a Heisman vote, and you've only watched half of one game the whole season, and you get a vote? So I would say this. For all the future potential Heisman winners, or at least the nominees, because, I mean, even if you're nominated, right, that's an incredible honor to be part of that.
100%.
But in terms of the winner, the voters should at least have watched the games. Is that too much to ask?
No, it's not.
At least watch the game. So that was upsetting to me because, we already knew he had no chance of winning after Atlanta because so many of the voters hadn't even watched him play.
That's true. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So with Christian being there in San Francisco, do you believe Brock Purdy is a franchise quarterback?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's going to be playing for the 49ers for a long, long time. And yeah, and the thing he shows is anticipation,
Yep.
which is it's hard to see that until you get into an NFL game, right? Because I mean, you can watch players throw in 7-on-7 and in practice, but you get into an NFL game and it's the fastest the game's ever been played. And so It's like if we want to compare it to a video game, if you're playing on 6 or 7 or 8, if you play for a great team in a great conference in college, you got to put it up to 10 or maybe 11, right? And now that's the NFL game, and not everybody can make that leap. And a lot of it for a quarterback is it's like football IQ, and that seems so general, but it's like, hey, you have to be able to react to the speed and quickness of the game, all of the different looks, because this is all these guys do. They spend all day long trying to deceive you in the secondary. Guys working all day long to get to you and defeat offensive linemen, to sack you in the backfield. And then the concepts are so much more complicated than in college, right? And so your ability to process and anticipate and react, I don't think you can fully tell that until a quarterback gets in an NFL game. And then you start to see it. And some players are better NFL players than college players because they have that skill set that lends itself to the NFL game. And others, aren't as good as maybe it's what they were in college. So I think Brock has that. I think he has intelligence. He's more mobile than what you would think. And I think that was noticeable last season. He got out a lot of pressures, rolled left, rolled right, stepped up in the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, threw with anticipation, goes through his progression quickly. And you know about progressions, right? It's not, you don't always go 1 to 2 to 3. Sometimes there's field progressions. It's like you got to eliminate half the field right away. Sometimes you can already tell 1 and 2 aren't there, so you go right to 3, even if you're looking off. But you can't just, sometimes you go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's too late, right? You're sacked. So his ability to process, I'd say that's true for every position, by the way, but especially for quarterback. Your ability to process what's going on, anticipate and react quickly. And also at quarterback in today's game, you got to be a little mobile. And in addition to having the arm strength and throwing with accuracy, I think he's got all those intangibles.
Yeah, I think he does too. And I'll say 2 things. So Monday Night Countdown, when I believe it was Garoppolo went down and Purdy was going to start for the very first time 2 years ago. I like to drop facts on these shows, Ed. I'm not a hot take guy. I just like to talk about the game and have a good time. So I knew Brock from his time at Iowa State. I knew he was a mobile guy, could get it all done. The only knock against him was, well, he doesn't have a Matthew Stafford arm, who how many guys do, right? And then he's a little shorter. So those 2 things were the knocks against him, why he didn't go as high in the draft as he probably could have based off of his ability to process. But I knew that this was coming as far as his moxie, his ability to extend plays. But then I saw a stat, because I'm a full believer that he's a franchise QB. I just want to know your opinion because I respect what you've done in the league and obviously your football acumen. But this guy had a 99.9 passing grade on balls targeted 20 or more yards down the field, which me and you both know that's unheard of. That's nearly perfect. 30 of 53 for 956 yards and 11 touchdowns and only 1 interception. And that's not just go balls, right? You're talking about the backside dig that I think we had one last year where Ayuk took it from like a 16-yard in and turned it into almost like a 22 to 23-yard in because Brock threw him to open space. You don't really see that, and that's not a skill that you can necessarily find on tape in a college game. Brock's adjusted so well to the pro game, and I'm glad he's got a guy like your son, Christian McCaffrey, to kind of help open things up for him as well. But speaking about quarterbacks, a team that you follow very closely and that you played for in the Denver Broncos have a 3-headed quarterback monster, competition going on right now. And one thing that I found interesting was a guy that you played with and won a Super Bowl with in 1994 was Steve Young. A lot of people don't know this because we're so far removed from it, Ed, but Steve had 2 seasons where he went 2-14 in Tampa Bay before he was traded to the 49ers. And he was able to resurrect his career, become a Hall of Fame quarterback. And I'm not saying that necessarily needs to happen for a guy like Zach Wilson. We saw Drew Brees become a Hall of Famer with Sean Payton. We saw Alex Smith become a solid, great, really good NFL quarterback when Jim Harbaugh came to the 49ers. And then when he subsequently went to the Kansas City Chiefs with Andy Reid. Do you think that a guy like Zach Wilson can rebuild himself under a coach like Sean Payton there in Denver?
Yeah, I do. He had a rough start, no doubt about it. They had all kinds of issues in New York with the Jets. And the plan was Aaron Rodgers was going to be the starter all year. You're going to learn from a Hall of Famer, and you're going to sit back and reset, right? Reset, learn from a Hall of Famer, improve your game, be a better quarterback at the end of the season. Obviously, that didn't happen, and he got thrown back into the fire, in and out of there. And I mean, you've watched quarterbacks who are getting, and they had a lot of injuries on their offensive line, right? I mean, they just did. They had a lot of injuries on their offensive line. He was getting pummeled. And, man, you get hit long enough, then you start getting happy feet, or, you stop looking down the field. And I think it really can mentally affect a quarterback. You got to be super strong to kind of withstand a couple of rough seasons and not let it affect you. But I think Coach Payton, he's a little bit of a quarterback whisperer. I even saw a lot of improvement in Russell Wilson's game from his first year to his second year. His numbers were way better, and I thought he was more productive. I think they're pretty high on Nix right now in Denver. I mean, he's obviously the guy they drafted early, and I personally will be shocked if he's not the starter day one. But they got Stidham and Wilson and Nix all taking snaps. But I think Nix is the guy. I think he's the guy that most reminds Coach Payton of Drew Brees, who he had so much success with. And I think he has experience, played a lot of years in college, and he has a really good processor. But there is a competition going on. Regarding Zach, I think it'd probably do him good, right? Hey, let me learn from Coach Payton. Let me get comfortable with an offense. I don't know how his body's feeling, but let me recover. Right. And hopefully improve as a quarterback and a player and get another chance to be a starter at some point in his career. I played on 3 different teams in 5 years before my career even took off. And I was a receiver, but I think that you saw Geno Smith. He sat out for like 10 years.
Yeah, he did.
He became a star. 10 years, right? I mean, that's like, wow. And then became a starter again in Seattle. So I think that potentially could happen for him, and I hope it does. I think this year it's going to be tough to be a starter with Nix there, but hopefully he'll get better, learn from Coach Payton, learn from being able to observe, take notes, practice, and revive his career.
No, that's so well put. And I agree that Zach can turn things around, and it doesn't, like some of the examples I gave are extreme examples, right? No one's expecting him to come in and become Steve Young. No one's expecting him to be Drew Brees, but with a coach like Sean Payton, they wanted him. And that to me is the start. Another team wanted you. You can come in and feel comfortable, but I'm a Bo Nix guy. 100%, Ed. And I think Sean said that Bo Nix and Drew Brees are similar. It's just that Brees wasn't the son of a coach. So how do you think that kind of plays itself into allowing Bo Nix to make that transition? And how can the Broncos set him up for success?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with what Coach Payton did when he was at New Orleans with Drew Brees, because outside of what we stole from your Washington playbook, I also stole my son Max played for the Saints for about 2 to 3 weeks. Before he ended up signing, I think, with he went to Jacksonville after that because they activated him. But I had access to their passing game, and we stole a lot of especially their quick concepts to get the ball in and out of Luke's hands when he was a quarterback in high school. And so I'm familiar with some of their concepts and how they teach the progressions. And I think it will lend itself very well to Bo Nix. Again, because he's smart, he has a ton of experience. He's a super fast processor. My son Luke played with him at the Senior Bowl, and he said nobody had a better grasp of what they were trying to do offensively. He got the plays in and out of the huddle. You have a headset. They're going past their allotment for talking. The ball's about to get snapped. He was a leader, and he grasps all the concepts as well as anyone that he's ever been around. So I heard since the Senior Bowl that he was the real deal. But obviously, he had a great collegiate career, has a lot of years of experience as a starter, and so I don't think Bo Nix is entering this year like as a normal rookie. You're talking about a guy that has 4 or 5 years of college experience, as a leader at the All-Star game, and now is already turning heads a little bit during OTAs. I think he's going to be more ready to go than maybe a quarterback you see that start at 1 year in college, and all of a sudden he's got to be the starter in the NFL. And from what, I try to read between the lines what Coach Payton's saying, what the other coaches are saying, what the reporters are saying, and everything has been positive. Like I'm trying to interpret. And sometimes you can tell they're saying something positive, but they really are hesitant or skeptical. They're very high on what Bo Nix has done so far. So again, I'll be shocked if he's not the starter. You still have to go out and play the game. Right. But I think he's the real deal. I think they're super happy with him. I think the offense will look more like what it did in New Orleans. You know, every year, even in New Orleans, every year the offense changes a little bit, right? But I think it'll look a little more like that than maybe what it looked like in Denver the last couple of years. And that's not to say that Coach Payton didn't try to incorporate some of those concepts into the game. He mentioned, you know, this isn't reading between the lines. He mentioned he would like less sacks. Right?
Yes.
And to you, that means, right, get the ball out of your hands quickly. Like, we can't 100%. Take losses. And so in order to do that, you have to, you know, be able to have great anticipation and go through progression quickly, or eliminate one side of the field, or find out where to go with the ball in 2.2 seconds, right? And so I think so far the feeling is Bo Nix has the ability to do that, to get the ball in and out of his hands, get it to his playmakers. You know, the playmakers are going to have to make plays, right? The quarterback can dish it, but at some point they got to run the ball. The playmakers have to make plays. But I think we're going to see a little more of that, what it looked like when Drew Brees was in there, than what we've seen the last couple of years in Denver.
Yeah, and I think people aren't there. How do I say this the right way? Because I'm a big Russell Wilson guy. But when you have a guy like Russell who comes in, and Sean didn't bring him in from Seattle, now Coach Payton is kind of having to adjust his system to what the quarterback does best. And that's what we saw. So the offense didn't look the same as it looked, or what everyone was accustomed to it looking like from New Orleans. But when you bring in a guy and you draft the guy that you want, handpicked, and I covered Bo Nix the past few years, and what he does an extremely good job of is avoiding sacks, getting the ball out of his hands, and he's a quick processor. So I agree with you. It's going to look more like what we're used to. And when you have a young quarterback, you can mold that young quarterback. You don't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's the old phrase. So Russell coming in, it was kind of like, we're going to do what he does best and try to put him in the best situation, which is creating. That's what Russell does best. He creates off schedule. Now you're going to see more of the creative screens, the quick game, pushing the ball down the seams, which are all things that Bo Nix is extremely great at. So I'm happy for him. And then the last question would be, with Cortland Sutton ending his mini holdout, how do you think he comes into the fold and really helps a young guy like Bo Nix in this offense? Because it'll be a different offense for him moving forward.
Yeah, he's a big, strong receiver. He's a great red zone target. You know, as a quarterback, there's times where, hey, man, I just got to give my guy a chance, right? I'm just going to throw this up, and I hope you come down with it. You're tightly covered, make a play. But I think he adds that big, strong receiver element to their offense. They got some quick guys, some fast guys also. But I always feel like the best offenses have guys with different skill sets, and you always want at least one bigger, stronger receiver to be that go-to target, either to move the chains or in the red zone. Or a guy you feel really comfortable throwing a 50-50 ball up to, because you know at worst he'll knock it down. So like, I think he can be a 10 touchdown guy for him, and a little bit of a safety net if you have to go to someone one-on-one down the sideline. And so, you know, he can run the route tree, but definitely at least in the red zone and on go balls and on deep balls, or when you have to take a chance, you can put it up there. He's bigger and stronger than most DBs. He can go up over the top.
No doubt about it. So, Ed, I got to say, man, thank you for being so gracious with your time. But just like you had in your NFL career, you had the sauce, man. Listen, you had the sauce. I know you had the sauce. So talk to me a little bit about your Rocky Mountain mustard and what you got going on there.
You know, I was working with this family that's 7 generations of mustard makers, and they're incredible. I mean, they've been doing this for generations, and they helped me put recipes together like mixologists for mustard. And finally, I came up with ingredients I really liked. And we came out with our first product, a spicy brown mustard. But over the years, certain grocery chains and distributors wanted us to create niche products for their market. So we created a squeeze bottle horseradish sauce, which isn't readily available, that is great for a lot of different recipes, but also to put on, you know, prime rib and roast beef sandwiches, et cetera. We came up with a chipotle mustard, a sriracha mustard. We've had Dijon honey mustard. And so it's been really fun over the years creating all these new product lines. But I've never promoted it. Like, Broncos fans are awesome, but a lot of Broncos fans, right, they don't even remember when I played. I'm Christian's dad. So what really sells is the product. It's just a really incredible quality product that makes your food taste better. So we're in the business of making good food taste better. But for the first time ever, we launched a website just this week. It's called McCaffreybrands.com. So, our product sells in the Rocky Mountain region, so Colorado and some surrounding states. But a lot of people like yourself, right? Maybe they were Broncos fans and they move out of the state and they can't buy the product. So now they can go online to McCaffreybrands.com and buy Spicy Brown or Chipotle or the bundle. And so for the first time ever, we're able to offer that ability for people out of state to buy the product. So we're really excited about it. And we're hoping that, we can start adding some different products over the next couple of years. And I've always had fun doing it.
Nah, that's awesome, man. Obviously, it's near and dear to your heart. So not only did you have the sauce during your career and your sons have the sauce now everybody can have the sauce. I love it. And the other thing is you're also doing some football camps. It's camp season. So talk to us about the camps you got rolling.
Yeah, man, I've been doing camps since 1998. And, you mentioned I have 4 younger brothers and sisters, and we were a big basketball family.
Yep.
Everyone played basketball. But my brothers went to football camps when they were little, but I never went to a football camp. And I remember they had met some NFL players and they worked with speed coaches. And I had never done that my whole life. I always went to the basketball camps because I was also a basketball player.
Yes,
and,
hold on. You were a 2-time state champion high school basketball
wait a minute.
player. Come on now. Let's put something on that now.
My high school just sent me the T-shirt. They just sent me the Allentown Central Catholic will be happy that made the podcast.
2-time. There you go.
Yeah, I mentioned that Lisa throws on the Glory Days song by Bruce Springsteen every time I mention my high school state championships. But yeah, so we were all basketball players. So I never went to football camps, and my football team wasn't even very good growing up. We were like 0-11 and 2-9 in high school, but I was good as a real little kid. But I still love football. I mean, it's a testament to my love of the game that I kept playing after we went 0-11 and 2-9, but I had great teammates and had a lot of fun. But anyway, my brothers went to these camps when they were little and I never did. And so when I became a pro and had this platform and had this opportunity to introduce youth players to elite coaches, to professional coaching, I just thought I had to do it. And so I get so much fulfillment out of the camps because I'm bringing together generations of football players. So we'll have, youth players, we'll have high school, college, and NFL coaches and players that run the camp. We'll have celebrity guest speakers that'll come speak to the kids about football and about life. And we'll have, Lauren Lando runs our sports performance. He's now the sports performance coach at Notre Dame, but he'll teach you, linear speed mechanics and lateral quickness, et cetera. That he was the strength coach for the Broncos for 5 or 6 years, and that's what he was teaching them. So it's the ability, one, to bring professional training to youth sports, to youth football, but also for me, it's just the generations of players like that since 1998. So, I'll run into players in the supermarket who are like, hey, I went to your camp 15 years ago. I'm like, oh my goodness, they have a family and kids of their own. Other kids are going to the camp. Right. And it also lets me bring back some of my old teammates.
That's awesome.
Kyle Johnson's a teammate of mine, played fullback for the Broncos, and he's been coaching our camp every year for like 15 years. And bringing in great speakers. TD came and spoke to the group last year. Rod has come in and spoken to our kids, and Carl Mecklenburg and Mark Schlereth. And all, every year we get 4 or 5 guys. Current Broncos, typically 1 or 2 will come and speak to the kids during the week. So for me, I didn't have that memory and I didn't have that coaching. And so we have an open camp, which is for everybody, anyone, girls, boys, anybody that wants to play football. You don't have to have any experience. It's non-padded, and we play a lot of 7-on-7, and the kids just have a good time. It's football, family, and fun. And then the afternoon, for the real competitive kids, we have more of an elite camp, which can be position specific. And so they stay at the same position for 4 days. But these are all like the best kids in the area that like competing against each other. Max did it. Christian did it. Dylan did it. Luke, all my kids went up through the camp as campers from the time they were little, like 6 and 7. And then they came back and were coaches at the camp. So I don't know. I got a lot of fulfillment out of it. And it's one of my favorite times of the year. And I'm looking forward to it next week.
Nah, so make sure you guys check out Ed's camp. It's, I believe, June 17th through the 20th. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been putting stuff out on social media. It's at sportseddy.com is where you sign up. But if you type in Ed McCaffrey football camp, it'll pop up. Still time to register. It's next Monday through Thursday, the 17th through the 20th. That's the other thing. It's not a one-day sign some autographs, run through some drills camp. This is a 4-day learning camp. And we get a lot of out-of-staters that are visiting Colorado in the summer, and they look forward to it every year. It's like 4 days for my kid to have something fun to do and meet new people and play a little ball.
Yeah, and parents out there, it's 4 days for you to get the kids out the house. Send them on over to Ed McCaffrey's camp. They'll get better, right? And you'll have some free time, okay?
There's a lot that are doing that. I know it.
So, and after you go to Ed's camp, make sure you come to my camp at Baylor on June 22nd, all right? It's a football academy, and we're doing exactly the same things that Ed are doing. And honestly, Ed, I've been inspired by you and many players before myself to kind of do those kind of things to give back to our community. And the last thing I have for you, Ed, I saved this one for last. I've heard some rumors, and I know you've answered some similar questions in the past, but I want to know some of these interesting training methods you've had for your boys.
Yeah.
Just give me your top 3 quirky things you've ever had them do to make sure they're most prepared to play and perform at a high level.
Well, I think I've gotten a bad rap. It's gotten blown out of proportion. My kids' curfew is getting reduced by an hour every time they open their mouth. So I don't know if all of the criticism is warranted. But look, I played the game, and look, I was neurotic when I played. I'll admit it. Like I told you, I would count every calorie, protein, carbohydrates, fats,
right?
How much water I was drinking. One of the habits I had was I would cut a piece of material off my uniform every single game. So every single game I was lighter, right? Because I cut some, even if it was just a fraction of an ounce, I was lighter. Wow. In my head, I'm lighter, right? And so my uniform actually used to be like what they look like now. Like you're too young. You're still 20 some years younger than me. You don't remember the big shoulder pads, and they weren't even hemmed, right? I mean, the sleeves were loose. And so I started hemming my pants, hemming my jersey, wore the smallest shoulder pads, try to be lighter because everyone was saying I was slow. So I was trying to be lighter. But with my kids, it started with me taping their jerseys. But other than quarterbacks, every other player practically on offense, like offensive line, receivers, if you don't want to get your jersey grabbed. And back in the day, we didn't have the Velcro jerseys. They were loose. So if a DB grabbed your jersey, you weren't getting off the line. Yeah. And so, but the reason I started two-way taping their jerseys is because I saw a kid break his leg it would be the equivalent of a
horse tackle, a horse collar.
Horse collar, yeah. It would be the equivalent of a horse collar. You grab the back of the jersey and you drop on the back of a player's legs. That's how Christian got his start his freshman year in high school. Their starting running back broke his leg. He was on about to score on the 2-yard line. The guy grabbed his jersey and dropped on the back of his legs, and the jersey was stretching. So for me, it was more for safety than anything. And also, you only get so many chances to score a touchdown. You want to get jersey tackled and not score a touchdown. So, but it was a safety reason for sure. And so, it's hard to two-way tape a jersey. If you ever had it done, you need to call your equipment manager and thank him, because I would do it for all 4 of my boys, and it is not fun. You're cutting tape. You got to pull it off. Then you got to try to get the jersey over their shoulders. It was a grind, but the things we do for our kids. And then some of the other stuff, in my opinion, is just good parenting, right? Like, I'm not like what? Phone away, and they acted like there's something wrong with that. I mean, why would I let you have your phone at night? You're not going to sleep at all. So I guess we're the only parents who did that. But you're going to eat a good dinner, and you're going to do your homework, and you're an athlete, and you got to get up early for school. So you're going to go to bed at a decent hour, and you're not bringing your iPad or your phone with you. And to me, that's just good parenting. But I've gotten criticism for that, but I don't regret it in the least.
I heard you wouldn't let him wear jeans on game day because it would suffocate his legs. Is that true or no?
See, I don't remember telling him that. I've heard him say that, but a lot of times, it's funny hearing stuff back from your kids, because my fatherly advice, he might have said, this is how I'm picturing this going down. Okay. He might have said, wow, it gets really hot because we have to go outside for some reason. For, I don't know, whatever their school had them going outside for. I'm like, and my jeans are tight or something. I'm probably, I'll just wear sweatpants. It's not like it was an ultimatum. I'm like, I'm trying to solve the problem. Or it's like, we go outside and I'm getting sunburn, and the sun's in my eyes. I'm like, oh, maybe just squint a little or something if it's in your. I'm probably just giving advice, but it wasn't like it was an ultimatum or I made him do it. It was just maybe. But they Christian especially, he asked a ton of questions, and so he probably remembered every single answer I ever gave him when I probably wasn't thinking all that much about the answer I was giving him. I was just trying to give him a solution to a problem. I will say the one. Come on in, Lisa. Come on in.
Hey, come on.
Come on in, Lisa. She's filming me on the phone. She's so excited that I'm doing the podcast.
I want to record it because I know the truth.
Hey, Lisa.
I was not. This was the Canarian right here.
No, let me tell you the truth. I'll tell you.
Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Come on.
Christian was right. Everything he said.
No,
don't listen to Ed. No, I'm kidding.
No.
I reread that and I'm like, I called Christian up. I'm like, are we like the hardest parents in the world? And he's like, no, he claims he wanted that. He claims he enjoyed it. He wanted that. That's what he said. So
kids want discipline and they want to be taught.
Yeah, I'm like, does he need therapy? Do we need to call a therapist?
Tough love is love too. Tough love is love too.
There you go.
I will say this though, it really helped having Lisa around to kind of we parented well together. I don't know that I would have been the answer by myself. Yeah, good cop, bad cop. I was usually the bad cop. She was usually the good cop. But it worked well. But the one thing I did that I got some grief for is giving him the IVs. And so I did let him get up. But hey, you can go to any like outdoor mall and get an IV anywhere. You can get one in the airport. So nowadays they're completely available everywhere. They have like vans that go to like business offices and offer IVs with like electrolytes and things like that. So again, I'm ahead of my time. And even if you're not familiar with it, in a couple of years, you can get an IV at the airport. Like you can get them anywhere. But the reason I did it was, Christian was one of those players that didn't come off the field. So he played offense, defense, and special teams in high school. So he never came off the field. I never did it when they were kids. But when he got to high school, he cramped up one night game. So if you can remember back in high school, you had to actually get to school early, right? You're getting up at 6 a.m. You're 100%. Getting to school. You're on your feet all day. You probably don't eat right. You don't stay hydrated. You don't go home, you stay there, you get dressed, and then you have to play a 3-hour football game. So I feel for high school kids. Nobody has it harder than high school kids. So they played a lot of night games because their team was good, and he didn't come off the field. So one Friday night game, he cramped in the second half, and he probably had 80 plays or 90 plays, and it was hot in the beginning of the season. So he cramped up. So I thought, maybe he needs an IV. So whether it was a placebo or whether it really worked, it didn't matter to me. I will say this, he never cramped when he got an IV for the rest of his high school career. But there was one mishap that did happen, and that was when it was before a state championship game, and our normal IV person was not available. Okay. So I did go, I'm like, we got to get the IV because it's tradition. Even though this wasn't a night game, it's like, he asked for it, and in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want him to think that he's not ready to go. So even if it doesn't matter, we're going to get this IV. And IVs are typically pretty easy. You get a needle, they fill you up with some saline, and it's over. But this was the morning of, so our normal guy was out of town, who's a professional and a doctor that we trust. And so we went to just an outdoor strip mall IV place. And that offers IVs because they're everywhere, believe it or not. But we go in there and thinking, how hard can it be to give them an IV, right? You just stick the needle in, the saline exits, and we're out of here. It'll be 20 minutes tops. But they stick the needle in, and I'm like on my phone, not paying attention. And Christian's like, hey, Dad. I look over, and there's like a softball-sized bump on the inside of his elbow. And they had missed the vein, so the saline was just going underneath his skin. And so I started having a panic attack. So I call the person back that was giving him the IV. They're like, it's okay. It's just saline. It'll go away under the skin. But I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this is before the state championship. Like I hope this isn't going to affect him. But they assured us it was nothing. So then they try again. And this time they hit the vein and blood literally splatters like up to the ceiling.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, so now just as a father, I can't let this go on. So I'm like, okay, we're good. Don't worry about it. Hey, Christian, we're good. And we get in the car and I can see he's a little concerned. He's like, Dad, but what about the IV? I'm like, you know what? It's really overrated. Just drink some Gatorade. And, and he looked at me like, have you been lying to me like for the past 4 years? What do you mean these IVs? are overrated. I've been doing it every night game in state championship for 4 years. But what else are you going to say? It's all right. I don't want them thinking about it. So I'm like, yeah, they're overrated. Don't worry about it. Just drink some Gatorade.
Oh, that is awesome.
You know what? He played well, so it must have worked.
It must have worked. It was the placebo, but no, I mean, sharing that story with us is phenomenal. I've never heard that. I'm glad that one experience didn't stop him from becoming the player that he's become. You guys have done an amazing job raising all your children. And as a girl dad of 4, it's something to look forward to as they continue to grow and continue to get older. There's ways to get through to our kids. They want discipline. They want to be challenged in a positive way. And you guys have certainly done that with all 4 of your sons. And I'm thankful that you came on the show, Ed. This is a dream come true for me. And I'm glad that you shared all these fun and unique stories with us here on the show. Well,
thank you. I've always been a big fan of yours as well. Have fun at your camps in a couple of weeks. And thanks for talking about so many different interesting things around the league on your podcast. It's been a real joy for me to join you today.
Oh, man, we appreciate that. Thank you, brother. All right, guys, that's a wrap for episode 39 of RG3 and The Ones. We want to give a huge shout out to Ed for coming on the show and also dropping some gems on us. Hopefully you took one thing from the show that you can apply to your own life so you can become the one in that bad boy as well. Make sure before you leave, you like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Know that we're going to be dropping episodes every single week, and you can follow us on social media at RG3 and The Ones so you can get those daily clips so you can know what's going on in this world while you're living out there in that one. RG3 and The Ones is a Way Sports and Entertainment original presented by PrizePicks, and this show would not be possible if it wasn't for the team behind the camera. So I want to give a huge shout out to my producer, Joanna, our social team, and our editor, Brady, for making this show possible in partnership with Whispering Oaks Productions. And you guys also know I'm not going to let you leave here without giving you something, some substance to walk away with. So I want you to know, don't quit on yourself. Listen, it's the people who don't quit who eventually find success. God has a plan for you, but you got to put in the work to make it happen. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.